What's going on, Laker fans? D-Mac. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. And welcome to another episode of the Lakers 24/8 podcast. And as always, I'm joined by a panel of esteemed experts. To my left, Mr. Noah Cameras. Follow him at Noah Cameras. And to my right, Mr. Noel Sanchez. Brings that noise on TikTok, Instagram. Follow him at Noise by Noel. And gentlemen, we're in the off season. I love to be in the postseason. I love to be in the NBA Finals, but this is my favorite time of the year because you get roster movement. We're going to see what this team is going to look like at the beginning of the season, and we're going to find out very soon the direction of this franchise. And today we have to talk about D'Angelo Russell because D'Lo, look, he played a big role in getting this team to the postseason. Early on, he had some big games. You saw against the Grizzlies in Game 6. This guy definitely contributed. Then he fell off the face of the planet there in the Western Conference Finals. Essentially was played off the court by the Denver Nuggets. And today we're going to talk about his future with the Lakers. And Jovan Buha,
you got this. I think it's Jovan Buha.
Was it?
Jovan Buha.
Jovan Buha.
There you go.
Of The Athletic.
I mean, he's probably watching, so Jovan, we're sorry.
No, Jovan Buha of The Athletic was on Dan Packers a few days ago, so much respect. So he said his read on the situation is that the Lakers would prefer to use D'Angelo Russell in a sign and trade, but I'm not sure the market is there. Now, if you're the Lakers, do you look to sign him for a deal that is longer than 2 or 3 years? You look to sign and trade him. My thing is I just don't know if there's a market out there that wants D'Angelo Russell. I'm okay with him maybe on a 2-year, $50 million deal. Hopefully $20 million per season would be ideal. Yeah. But I think, to me, you have to retain him as an asset. But what say you, Noah? What would you do with D'Angelo Russell if you're the Lakers?
I mean, at this point, it's definitely tough to kind of think about him getting more than $20 million a season. I mean, yeah, he's a pretty good regular season player. He's a one-time All-Star, but he has this track record of just kind of falling apart in the postseason, and we were hoping that wouldn't happen with the Lakers this year. We saw it happen in front of our own eyes with the Denver Nuggets. So, yeah, you hope that he's not getting too much, but like you said, it's kind of like you have to retain the asset. The Lakers have not been doing any retention for the last 3 off seasons now. I mean, they just have not been able to make those decisions to get their guys back. So, is he someone that you have to keep? Probably, unless the sign and trade is there. But like you said, I don't know what the market is like. I know there was the rumor about a potential Fred VanVleet, D'Angelo Russell sign and trade. I don't think that's going to entice the Raptors very much. They already have enough guards. So I don't know. If there's a market for a sign and trade, I think that has to be plan one. But if there's no market, you can't just let him walk for nothing. That literally does nothing for the Lakers to just let him go.
Yeah, especially when you consider the fact that there's not very many options for them. They're not going to have the requisite cap space to go out there and try to sign a Kyrie Irving or anything like that. You just talked about Brook Lopez. Yes, maybe Harrison Barnes is a name. Maybe you get for 14, 15 million, names like that. But if you are looking to operate as an over-the-cap team, you have to retain that asset. You saw how they got burned with Julius Randle. But just as a player, if you're the Lakers, would you hitch your wagon to D'Angelo Russell?
I mean, I think you hit it right on the money when you're talking about how if you're going to try to get him, maybe for 2 years at most, and you're going to want to see how he develops. He was on record saying that this team has a very high sky as long as they get a training camp under their belt together. And, I mean, these guys, no doubt they're hungry. They want to come back, and they want to prove to the world that this is a squad that can rival that 2020 squad that has a lot of versatility, that could shoot, that could defend, and has a youth factor that the Lakers haven't had for the past 2 seasons. And, honestly, a team is nothing without a point guard. So the Lakers have found a good point guard in D'Lo, even though he didn't perform in the playoffs. I mean, you could argue that LeBron James is always the primary ball handler, but there is really no telling that because LeBron is only getting older, and he wants a point guard on his team. That's why you made the trade for Russell Westbrook. That's why you brought back Dennis Schroeder. So I think even though D'Lo didn't necessarily live up to the hype that we all thought he could, he was matched up pretty badly against the Jamal Murray, and I mean, his confidence was just at an all-time low against the Denver Nuggets. So, I mean, I think you bring him back, and I think the money spot would be on a 2-year deal. But I don't know, he could get a little feisty there. I think he wants that big deal in a way.
Yeah, I think he's a guy, of course, he's been a part of some of these deals in the past. Of course, he was involved in the sign and trade with Kevin Durant, and he knows the process. But I also think, too, there is a little bit of recency bias in this one. Yeah. I think the longer removed you get from that Western Conference Finals where he absolutely was a no-show, averaged 6.3 points per game, was play off the court like we mentioned, I think they'll realize the sensible thing to do is retain him as an asset. But I also think, too, if you want to find a way to try to maybe operate as an under-the-cap team, which is a possibility if they wanted to renounce his rights and try to go that route. But, I mean, if you look at his cap hold, I mean, you could let him walk, right? Would you consider letting him walk under any circumstances, Noah?
It just feels like a waste. I mean, to have that asset, if there's not like there's many great options unless they luck into Kyrie with the sign and trade or, unless they luck into a sign and trade, they're not going to have, the money to really start making big offseason additions. And at some point you have to go with the continuity and think this team just got to the Western Conference Finals. You know, they kind of just turn things around after the trade deadline. Like D'Lo said early on, give them a full training camp, give them some time to mesh, and the sky's the limit for this team. So unless they can really put together a great sign and trade package that offloads D'Lo and gets another, great player, another Kyrie Irving, Fred VanVleet, I don't think Trae Young's going to have him, but like a player like that.
Terry Rozier's, I think, would be
Terry Rozier's an interesting one. So unless you're really getting a great player in a sign and trade, there's no reason to let just D'Lo walk. I'd much rather have them run this back, see what they can do with a full training camp. And yeah, like you said, in the regular season, D'Lo had his moments. I mean, those transition threes at home, he loved being in front of that crowd. He's always pumping everyone up. He brings the energy. So overall, D'Lo on this Lakers team was a positive. It's not like you can look at that as a negative. So, running it back is not the worst option. I think a worse option is just letting him go for nothing.
What do you say, Noel?
I mean, I think so too. I think the ideal thing here would be, and a lot of Lakers fans do think that if they let D'Lo go, they could just kind of fill someone in. But I mean, his contract and the cap space for the Lakers is what makes that very difficult right now. So, I mean, I think you got to explore your options. You got to take some phone calls. You got to see what the sign and trade market would be like, because obviously he didn't go crazy when he needed to. But I mean, you also got to be realistic here and think point guards are probably the hardest position to come by in the league, because they're the coach on the floor. They're the person that's running the offense. And when you have an Anthony Davis on your team, you need a good point guard to get him the ball. We saw how that went with Russell Westbrook, where he could never get the hang of it. And I mean, D'Lo, he's a natural point guard. He say what you want about him on defense, but he can get those transition things, like you said. He can push the ball. He can get those hockey assists. So, I mean, I think if it all comes down to it, you got to bring him back.
Yeah, Doug, I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, because you've been hard on D'Lo ever since he came to the Lakers.
Where's that apology letter right now?
Ripped that apology letter. So
where's it at right now?
Yeah, so
I was in a position where I was happy to admit I was wrong. I think there's a lot of intangible things he provides. I think he was a big part of the culture change. He definitely changed the way the Lakers were after Russell Westbrook and everything they dealt with. It was a homecoming, but there was a honeymoon phase, and then they started to fight during the honeymoon in the postseason. Because if you look at his regular season numbers, if you give me 17.4 points per game, 2.9 boards, and 6.1 assists in the postseason, the playoffs, I'd be all about it. I think it would make a lot of sense. But, I mean, if you look at those numbers, I mean, they're a little over 13 points per game, just under 5 assists per game, shooting 42.6% and 31% from beyond the arc with 0 defense. That's a net negative player. That's literally what I said the day that they made the trade, or shortly thereafter when we did this show, was that he is a net negative in the playoffs. And we know that the standard for the Lakers is to win in the postseason. But the reality, too, is there's just not very many options. You have to find a way to retain that asset. And I think if you want to spin a positive, you could say he did lose a lot of money. I mean, the value did go down. So if you could get him roughly for around $20 million a season, and you can run this group back as much as possible, and then hopefully teams look at his regular season numbers, and if they do want to trade him during the season next year, you still have an asset to work with. Because
$20 million is a much tradable asset, a much more tradable asset than if he was in the
absolutely
high 20s.
Yeah, and I think, too, this organization has had too much asset mismanagement over the last 4 or 5 seasons that you can't let this guy walk away. But I do think we're going to transition now to a possible sign and trade. Now, I do think right now, if I had to guess, I would say the Lakers, they re-sign D'Angelo Russell. They run this back, and they remember more the regular season early in the playoffs than they do against a Denver team that just really across the board, they were overmatched. It wasn't just D'Angelo Russell who had a bad series. He was just the most glaring of them all. But I do think Fred VanVleet is a very interesting name. I mean, we're going to talk about Fred VanVleet. We know he's a guy, he has been a playoffs performer. He's a guy that stepped up for the Toronto Raptors. Also, contractually, he can opt in to the last year of that deal, so you're not under team control for a long time. You're not committed long term. So that to me is very favorable for a guy that, hey, maybe if you want to get a long-term deal done with him, fine, but still you get to test him out a little bit. You get to test drive that car and just see if you really want to go with him long term. But what are your thoughts on the possibility of the Lakers getting VanVleet in a sign and trade?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved Fred VanVleet. He's really come on the last few years. He's a good shooter. He's a good shooter from 3. He's a good playmaker. He plays good defense. You know, he's obviously he's pretty undersized for a point guard, but overall he brings the things that you need to see out of your point guard. And I think, he's the kind of point guard that would be a good fit next to a LeBron James who doesn't need the ball in his hands. It's not like he needs to be a ball-dominant point guard. He could be an off-ball point guard. He can shoot the ball, but he's a pretty good defender. He gets his hands on a lot of balls, gets a lot of steals, and in the playoffs, like you said, he performs. I mean, he was one of the key contributors. That was kind of his coming out party for the Raptors when he started having those big postings after. I think it was he had his son or something.
Yeah.
Father Fred.
Yeah, his father Fred.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's shown he can perform, when the team needs him to. He's shown to be a good shooter. He's shown to be a good defender. And he's not a ball-dominant, point guard similar to a Kyrie Irving or a Trae Young or someone like that. And even D'Angelo Russell said he wants the ball in his hands. But Fred VanVleet's not that guy. So I think he would be a really good fit. I just don't know how interested the Raptors would be in, like, D'Lo and a first for FVV. I don't know if that really would, move the needle for them, especially after their disappointing season last year.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers always do that. They always think that other teams think that their trash is their treasure, but it's not always the case. But just as a player, Noel, what are your thoughts on VanVleet? And do you think he'd be an upgrade to D'Lo in this Lakers offense?
I think it would be very, very interesting to see Father Fred in a Lakers uniform. I mean, just looking at his last couple of seasons, he really took a jump from 2018 to the 2019 season. In 2018, he averaged 11 points per game, and since then, he has never averaged below 17 points a game. Huge. So, I mean, he took a humongous jump. I remember in that playoff run with Kawhi, he really stepped up. I mean, going from playing like from a DeMar DeRozan to a Kawhi Leonard, that's very big jump. So I think if you bring him alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis, that'd be very, very intriguing. He's not scared of the moment. He's a known clutch player as well. So, I mean, it all boils down to, like you said, if the Raptors do want D'Lo, I wonder what they would want packaged next to him, because obviously it's not just going to be a straight up. So I think if the Lakers have to part ways with, I don't know, maybe another pick or two down the line or another player, whether it be a Malik Beasley or anybody else, like I said, the phone call has to be made, because Father Fred would be very, very good with us.
Yeah, and the difference is, look, D'Angelo Russell, he's developed a reputation for disappearing in the playoffs. Yeah. Fred VanVleet, his reputation is he takes his game to another level in the playoffs. We've seen him hit big shots in the finals, but I want to go to my buddy over there, super producer buddy. Any thoughts on the possibility of Fred VanVleet? Do you like the idea of him in purple and gold?
I do like the idea. Well, first of all, hello, everyone. And thank you guys for having me. But I do like the idea of Fred VanVleet. He is prime time. He's a prime time player. No doubt about it. Just like my boy Dickie V used to say, PTP, primetime player.
PTP,
and
a diaper dandy.
That was good.
That was good.
That was really
good.
Oh my god, that was good.
And I think, like you guys both said, he's not a ball dominant player, but when he does need to have the ball in his hands, he could do great things with it. But I am worried about their president, Masai Ujiri. I know he wants nothing to do with the Lakers. He's known to be a Laker hater. So I don't know if he will do something like that. If he does, maybe pigs will fly one day. But I'm not sure how it would go down, per se. But I would love Fred VanVleet in the purple and gold.
Yeah, I mean, look, he has a player option worth $22.8 million. So the value there, I mean, if you look at, since he signed that $85 million deal, it has gone down. But I think if you're looking to make another run, maybe he makes some sense. But also, too, do you really want to show your cards that early if you're the Lakers? Or do you want to hold on to D'Angelo Russell, who... he's still young. He still has put up pretty impressive playoff regular season numbers compared to the playoffs. And also, too, last year, if you look at his efficiency, not a lot of guys were doing what he was doing with a 22% usage rate. So I think teams out there, if you look at D'Angelo Russell and say, hey, maybe this guy, we could put him in a system and put some pieces around him where we can see the upside in him. And if you're Lakers, too, you trade him Westbrook style. I mean, you take him into the season, you see if anything's out there, you see how things worked out. And also, look, what did D'Angelo Russell say? He wants to see a full training camp. He wants to see this team and how they look. There's something to that. But next thing I want to ask you guys, though, is the vibe with the Lakers and D'Angelo Russell, because things were going swimmingly for a while. The vibes were up, and then all of a sudden, it felt like it just crashed all of a sudden. Do you think this organization, especially with the rumors, and you always have to deal with the rumors with the Lakers, you're always going to be in headlines, you're always going to get those clicks, but it does feel like he looked a little dejected when that series ended. Do you think that the end of the season is going to play into it all?
I don't think so. I think he was more dejected with himself just for how he was playing, how he was unable to perform. I think, there were kind of reports going on early in that series that was like the Lakers can't bench D'Lo because that's going to hurt them in free agency. I disagree with that. I think D'Lo knows that he deserves to be benched. I think at the end of the day, if his shot's not falling, he's not playing great defense, he knows he doesn't deserve to be out there. So I don't think there's any bad blood between the two sides. I just think D'Lo was playing poorly. He was mad at himself for that, and the Lakers knew they had to do what they needed to do. So I don't think there's any issues with that. I think they're going to come into this offseason kind of like a clean slate with D'Lo. Don't worry, they're kind of like D'Lo saying, "We don't worry. I know what you had to do, but I still want to get this happen, make this deal happen." I love playing in Los Angeles. I love this homecoming. This has been such a great reunion. So I don't think there's going to be any issues. The only thing, like you said, is I do think he lost himself a little bit of money, which I think he also knows, which also kind of probably made him a little dejected.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think it was more pride than anything else. I think these guys are well off for the rest of their lives. They have more money than they know what to do with. But also, too, I mean, Fred VanVleet, is he that much of an upgrade if you look at the regular season? I mean, he shot 39.3% from the field, 34.2% from beyond the
Yeah,
arc.
I mean, he kind of had a down year.
He definitely had a down year.
'cause he was better the year
But
before.
he's not a guy who's like an explosive athlete. He's really a shot maker. I think that he's going to fall off quicker in his career. He's not a big guy. I don't expect
Not at
him
all.
to age like fine wine. So I think it's a situation where if you're looking at him for a 1-year run, maybe it does make sense, but it's not something that to me moves the needle enough. I think that it would raise their floor potentially in the playoffs if you were able to run it back. Of course, you get Rui, you bring Austin Reeves back, and you, of course, have the big dogs at the top. Anthony Davis and LeBron James, you're still
big
feeling okay
dogs.
about that. But also, too, it limits your flexibility if you want to do something else later on. And I think, look, we're going to talk about Trae Young next.
Yeah.
And that, to me,
Oh,
is
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much a pipe dream. And why would
I agree.
Atlanta want to do that? Really,
Why would they
not
want
enough
D'Angelo
pieces.
Russell
But,
for no reason?
I mean, if you look at Trae Young, I just don't think, just let's say it's possible. I think it's a pipe dream. I don't think it's likely. But let's just say the deal is on the table. Do you really think that Trae Young gets this team over the top? I think he needs volume. He's a volume shooter. And everyone tries to compare him to Steph Curry. He's never been in Steph Curry's league when it comes to three-point efficiency. 33.5% from beyond the arc.
The only way I see like Trae Young actually working on the Lakers, and it's ridiculous to say this because it's not going to happen, is if LeBron James actually retires. And we all know that there's no chance of that actually happening.
Watch our
because-
last video for that one.
Yeah, watch our last video for that one. But I mean, when you look at Trae Young, he operates well when John Collins is engaged in the game. You know, there's times where John Collins, he's in trade rumors with the Atlanta Hawks all the time for that very reason, because there's times where he looks amazing. He's putting people on posters. He's hitting mid-range jump shots, and him and Trae Young are clicking. But when they're not, that's when Trae Young kind of goes to that crazy ball and just turns the ball over, chucks a lot of threes, gets himself into double teams. And I mean, if he came onto the Lakers with the LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and he's sitting in the corner watching LeBron James and AD go to work, I'm not sure that would sit too well with him. I think he wants to be in the spotlight of LA, and I think he wants to be that star with them, but I don't think a big three like that would work. He needs just him and a big man with a bunch of shooters all around, and he's going to be making like $40 million over the next 3 seasons. So that cap, it's going to be like when Russell Westbrook was with us.
Yeah.
It's going to be LeBron, AD, Trae Young, and I don't even know if Austin Reeves would be able to fit into that at that point. It's going to be them three and then a bunch of G Leaguers and people from LA Fit and all that. So
Yeah, and let's be honest, man. He's a Clutch client. We understand that everything's calculated with Clutch. Anytime his name surfaces in the rumors, and it's probably because he's not happy in Atlanta. But I mean, I'm just going back to what we were talking about earlier. Where are the assets? I mean, look, I want a Bugatti and a house in Beverly Hills, but I can't get that. Okay, they have a 17th pick in the first round. I mean, they don't have the requisite assets and the pieces
they don't want to parlay
make
with
it
that
happen.
pick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
like Trae Young's still. I mean, he's a budding superstar in this league. I mean, it's not like the Hawks are going to be like, we'll just take D'Angelo Russell in a first and call it even. Like, I mean, there's just no way that like this is someone they're going to.
they spent a lottery pick on him.
Yeah,
They
I
spent a
mean-
lottery pick. He's still in his young 20s. He's still, he's getting that huge contract. I mean, like he's someone that they're hoping to build around.
Yep.
Or if they're going to trade him, they want
a
a
haul.
lot
Yeah,
in
they want a
return
haul.
to kind of reset. So there's no reason that they would take on an older and worse D'Angelo Russell, and then like 1 or 2 first-round picks. Just because Trae Young wants to leave, and the Lakers are the Lakers. So yeah, I agree with you.
I have a quick question about the point guards. Would you guys rather have Terry Rozier or Fred VanVleet?
VanVleet.
Yeah.
I'd rather have VanVleet. I think
VanVleet.
Rozier, athletically, he's superior. I think he's a faster player that definitely can go off. He's another microwave player. But I think in the playoffs, what this team's going for, you trust VanVleet. I don't love the idea of VanVleet either, though. I think, not very athletic. I mean, he's kind of a known flopper, too. I don't think we need that. But I still think this team definitely, I'd rather run it back with the pieces that we have now and just wait and be patient to see if something else opens up. I mean, Trae Young, if that was a situation where maybe D'Lo went off in the playoffs, had a great series, maybe the Lakers in the finals, and it was a mutual understanding, then yeah, maybe that would make sense. But that was the case. Lakers would definitely want him on the team because that means they were winning, right?
yeah, they would not be.
Yeah, they wouldn't be trading him because I think the Lakers like the continuity, the familiarity that D'Lo has with this organization. I think there is something to that. But I look at the ceiling, I look what this team's after, and I just say to myself, look, the good thing here is that D'Lo doesn't have any leverage. He has no leverage whatsoever. And if they want to let him walk, yeah, maybe he can walk. But still, I mean, if they're able to retain that asset and flip him for something down the line, it makes sense. And look, let's try to spin a positive here. Maybe he does have a pretty good year, helps them get wins. Look, if the Lakers don't start 2-10, right, if the Lakers aren't terrible until they trade Russ, they're going to have more gas in the tank, and they would have been better off later in those rounds. And that's why Denver looks so fresh. They put together a really nice start to the season. So I think really my just overarching take on D'Angelo Russell is business is business. You get the 2-year deal done around $40+ million, and then you go on from there, and then you work on Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, and of course Vando on that favorable contract. You bring him back as well. Seems like we're all in agreement there, but on the same token, I think we could put the Kyrie Irving rumors to rest. He's not coming back. He's not going to the Lakers for a deal that's we give him a $10 million discount. They're not going to give him in a sign-in trade. So really, what is out there for D'Angelo Russell? I just don't see any better options right now.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, I do like Fred VanVleet. I think if that really becomes an option, it's definitely something to consider. But if I had to predict what's going to happen, I think D'Angelo Russell is going to be a Laker at the beginning of next year. Like you said, hopefully a 2-year deal, not too much money. And then mid-season comes around, trade deadline comes around. He's not, if they kind of have a better option, maybe then Kyrie Irving is, something's this year, someone like that. Then you can maybe make a move for a quote-unquote upgrade. But I don't know. I like the idea of seeing what they do with the training camp. Like
yeah.
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're going to really see what this group is made of when they actually get some solid reps together and not playing must-win basketball every time they take the floor together. So it's gonna be cool seeing them step into crypto if D'Lo comes back.
Yeah, no doubt. And two, we don't know what version of LeBron James we're going to get next season. Are they going to look for a more of a playmaking point guard? We know that's always been the plan. I think the next year is the year where it truly does happen from wire to wire. Also, too, there's some rumors out there that Philly is interested in VanVleet to replace Harden. So it's not like they're not going to be any competition for the guy. So definitely think it's still early. We're going to see more rumors start to surface. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Lakers 24-8 podcast. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMAC_LA. This man to my left is Mr. Noah Cameras. Go follow him at Noah Cameras. To my right, he brings the noise, Mr. Noel Sanchez. Follow him at Noise by Noel. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Also, drop your takes. What do you think the Lakers should do with D'Angelo Russell? Do you want to see them bring him back? Do you want to see him flip him in a sign and trade? We want all your D-Lo takes down below. And until next time,
Go Lakers!
It's a parade inside my city.
Go Lakers.